So I take pleasure in introducing Robbie Long.
Hi, I'm Robert Long. I've got some experience with all three of these levels of treatment or prevention or recovery is what we call it after treatment. Didn't listen on the first two. Tried on the secondary. I realized I was an addict way back, and I was a master of substitution. I smoked a lot of weed. It became my identity. I started using drugs and alcohol because I was insecure, wasn't happy about who I was lonely, and I made that into my identity. I was the guy that could get the weed. I was the guy that could get the coke. I was the guy that could get the acid, the shrooms, whatever. And that became who I was. That was my identity. Not a very healthy identity for a young high schooler to have, but it is what it is. And, it's hindsight's 20/20. But, then when I was a senior in high school, or maybe it was when I was a junior, some younger kids brought a toolbox that they'd found on the side of the road. And they knew I was Rob, the party animal. So they brought it to me, and they said, "What do we got here, Rob?" And it was a toolbox stuffed full of 100% pure, what we used to call prope dope. It's no longer around. It's kind of methamphetamine that when you do it, you can feel your hair grow. And there was a huge amount of it. So me and all my buddies in high school, it's like the American nightmare, a bunch of kids finding a bunch of poison, and that's what happened. And that kind of took it to a new level. Instead of just being a high school drinker on the weekends or, during basketball games or whatever, I became a drug dealer at a pretty young age, pretty serious drug dealer. And I didn't even look at it as anything that was illegal. It's just who I was. It's what I did. I also held a job. I went to school. My plan was never to become a drug addict or to get in trouble with the law, but it just stumbled into my lap, and it's, I made some really poor decisions. When I was going to school here, my plan was to get my business degree, transfer over to U of O, which I did. Got my block transfer, and I never planned on being, the center of a federal drug case or a drug trafficker or even a drug addict for that matter, like I said, or even an alcoholic. It was just a phase, it was going to pass. When the good job came along, or when it was time to grow up, I'd be able to do it, Then I ended up, I tried to move to Portland to try to get away from it all because I realized I was doing a little too much coke or a little too much meth. And then I'd move back and I'd get a job. I got a job at Symantec for a little while, lost that. Of course, at the time, I thought it was everybody else's fault, not mine. Of course, it was my fault. Then I ended up getting a job at another company doing, office-type work. And at that point, I had quit doing the hard drugs, as I'd call them, coke and meth. I was just drinking very regularly, pretty much every night. Drank with some of the people in this room. We hung out at a bar every night and drank until we were stupid, and then we started doing. I don't know about. All I know is I drank with some of the people in this room. Then I started doing cocaine on a regular basis, and a lot of my friends just continued to drink, whereas I started doing cocaine, and then I started doing meth again. I lost my job. Was offered a job at eWeb. And part of that was you got to take a thorough physical at McKinsey-Willamette. Well, I had to smoke weed because I was an addict. I didn't look at it like I had to smoke weed because I was an addict at that point. I just looked at it like, work, life, the drag, the this, the that. I got to smoke weed on my way to the bar every day. I didn't even think of smoking weed as doing drugs. I thought that's just something that everybody does in Oregon. And, it's drinking that I have maybe a little problem with. Maybe my coke use is a little bit out of hand, but it's the weed I got to worry about on the physical. I can stop doing coke for a week or whatever, but it's the weed that. Well, I'll just go over to the head shop and get some of that stuff to clear your urine, And so that's what I did. I went and bought a $50 bottle of Vales. Doesn't work. So if Vales sues me for that, joke's on them. It doesn't work. And I lost a job at eWeb because of that. That was That's an excellent job to have. Sitting in an office, hi, this is Robert E. Webb. And, of course, at that point, I thought it was all their fault, not mine. But in reality, it was my fault. You know, I should have quit smoking weed. Well, at that point, I kind of fell off the deep end and just started going to this bar. You know, I had just enough money to live, pay my bills, and drink every day. Started going to the bar all day, every day, drank, and then, you know, I got to know people that hung out in bars, particularly one bar in particular, and I got to know everybody, and it was just where you came to see Rob. It was my identity. That became my adult addictive identity. It was hanging out in this bar, getting drunk, doing coke, whatever, doing speed, whatever. You know, I was kind of broke, so I didn't really have. It was just whatever my buddies would give me or whatever. Knew a couple drug dealers, you know, small-time drug dealers, and pretty soon it was, you know, Rob, can you get me a 20 sack? You know, because I knew so-and-so. And then so pretty soon I'm getting people 20 sacks, and pretty soon that turns into, you know, me getting some drugs, you know, a larger amount, because I realized, you know, I could get my drugs for free. You know, and I'd ever since high school, I'd done nickel-dime drug dealing as part of my, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the whole, you know, being a pothead. You get an ounce, you sell, I don't know, 7 of the 8ths, and you get your 8th for free. Or with other drugs, it's the same way. You get a little cocaine, you sell some of it, you get yours for free. You get a little meth, you sell some of it, you get yours for free. That's how it always starts as a user. Well, I'm not going to go into, I'm not here to work on the supply side of this epidemic. I'm here to maybe help you guys work on the demand side. You know, the supply side is for law enforcement to work on. I'm just here to hopefully give you guys some information about what happens when you get involved with the commercial side. I moved up the ranks of the underground community very quickly, and on October 5th of '05, which was like, I don't know, 14, 15 months ago, I got a knock on the door. Springfield Police Department, pretty much all of them, all suited up, you know, freeze, nobody move, you know, we have a warrant. I was like, whoa, guess I'm done, you know. Yeah, they left with over half a kilo of 100% pure meth, or 98% or something like that. Works out the same on the grid. And a Glock, and a .357, and a sawed-off shotgun, and I had surveillance cameras all over the house, and bank of TVs, and the big desk with the Tony Montana poster behind it. I was an idiot. I was a complete moron, and I thought I was so cool because I dodged them for so long. I thought I could go on indefinitely, you know, just being a drug dealer. I thought I had the perfect cover for everything. I had, like I said, I was an idiot. My lawyer, I had a lawyer on retainer at the time. Again, saw that in the movies or something. Thought you have to have a lawyer if you're going to have, you know, if you're going to be a drug dealer. So I went and got a lawyer on retainer. Got me out, you know, the same day I got arrested, pretty much. And I ended up firing him, getting a new lawyer. And this new lawyer, the first lawyer was good. He just had, he was more about, he was an excellent lawyer. But for whatever reason, I got rid of him, got a different lawyer. And this lawyer's like, Rob, you need to, you know, yeah, I'm going to get you out of this. I'm going to see what I can do. He's another good lawyer in town. He said, but first of all, dude, you need to change your life. You know, you need to get into drug treatment. You know, even if I can make this go away, you need to get a normal job. You need to quit being a meth dealer. I was like, but I don't sell drugs to kids. He's like, there's no such thing as a good meth dealer. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right, you know. I guess maybe, I don't know. I didn't really believe him at first, you know. I thought, well, as long as I don't sell drugs to kids, I'm a good drug dealer. But in reality, you know, there's no such thing as a good meth dealer. So he told me where to go. I got into treatment. Started going to meetings while I waited to get into treatment, because you can't just walk in. You got to get it on a waiting list and whatever, and when they got room to let you in. Started going to meetings. They started telling me about getting a sponsor, doing step work, you know, living the program of recovery, and got into treatment center, local one here. Was doing pretty good. Ended up in my 5th week getting a client of the month, and then I got kicked out for violence. With a misunderstanding, You know, there was a guy in there that